Welcome back, everyone, to another Hearts of Iron 4 mod spotlight. This time we're going to be taking a look at End of a New Beginning, which is the Victorian Age mod that has been developed throughout the last year. Yeah, it's an interesting mod, so we're going to take a look at it. I've realized that I've actually never done that, so let's just do that. The reason I didn't do that earlier on is because it just felt like a really boring concept and something that like perhaps someone would just put together really quickly just to, you know, make people see like, oh look, I'm so good, I made Victorian Age Hearts of Iron 4 without really actual substance behind it, because let's face it, the game is not the most you could say what's the correct word? What? Okay. The game Hearts of Iron 4 is not exactly the most adept at portraying the historical period of the Victorian Age, but whatever. Now I've changed kind of my mind because I've seen that the amount of work and polish that has been put into the mod is actually very high. So without further ado, let's actually get into this a little bit. Obviously, we're going to do it by screens. First screens is the political one, and oh boy, it's kind of interesting. So there's several tabs that have been added, such as State of the Country, Governmental Policy, Cultural and Education Policies, Demographic Policies, Economic Policies, obviously. And then we have the usual political advisors, military staff, and research and production. These three down here are the same. You know, pretty much the standard that you're used to. Economic policies, some of them are similar, such as, well, demographic and economic policies have a couple of features from regular Hearts of Iron 4, such as the trade law, the mobilization law, and the conscription law, although the values have been changed around a slight bit to reflect, you know, the different ideas that the mod is going for. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the tech tree in a bit. Just know that it is pretty fucking good. I agree with this tech tree. It's something that I like. Anyway, yeah, so the state of the country is just the head of state, which is going to be something to represent the monarchs that are not prime ministers, because the actual country leader is the prime minister, aka the head of government. So this is to represent, like, you know, Frederick Wilhelm IV in Prussia, Napoleon III, not in France, because the head of state is also the leader. So in case your head of state is also like the dictator of the country, you say, yeah, this one. This law only applies when the country does not have a head of state. How interesting. Anyway, it's also, for example, the law that is the default for the United States of America, because the president, who is the head of state, is also the head of the government. Hehehe. Historical events are fun. Yeah, we're gonna get to that soon. As you can see right now, we are playing as Italy. Well, soon to be Italy, aka the Kingdom of Sardinia Piedmont. And yeah, the whole historical event stuff, hey, look, it's San Marino. The whole historical event stuff we're gonna go over. But yeah, essentially, like, whatchamacallit? Really? Oh. Apparently, naval invasions are not a thing yet. Well, that's annoying. Yeah, so that's the head of state. Then there is the heir to the throne. That is, in case you're a monarchy, you have a non-hereditary system, and so it doesn't matter. But if you're a monarchy, it was very important back in the day to maintain political stability, to have a stable heir, strong heir. Because, you know, if political power is obviously, at least in terms of ideology, supposed to be passed down from God or whatever to the monarch, then, you know, the succession law and the succession is very important. Now, this isn't going to destroy your country like it would in the Middle Ages or anything like that, but, you know, it's better than nothing. Like, it endangers the stability of the monarchy, and the heir mechanic is mostly influenced by decisions. If we take a look at the decisions, we can disinherit our heir, and that's gonna lead to our strong heir becoming a dethroned heir? I think it would, anyway, or maybe no heir, who knows. So yeah, that's what you might want to do if you have a weak heir. Industrializing is the industrialization score. So you start off as an agrarian society, at least most countries do. Even some in Europe, such as you can see Bavaria, Switzerland is industrializing, the Austrians are industrializing. Yeah, you see, okay, for example, Hanover, over here, he starts off as an agrarian society. The Netherlands as well. Belgium as well. Not France, though. And definitely not England. You can switch to industrializing with decisions, focuses, you know, all this stuff. Then you work your way up to industrialize, then to electrification, and then to mass production, all of which affect both your research speed and your obviously stats, such as production efficiency, construction speed, all that kind of stuff. And it also allows for certain decisions, certain events, all that stuff to fire. So it's very important to upgrade that because it just makes everything better. Then there is the era, the technological era. You start off pre-industrial, or at least the uncivilized people start off as pre-industrial, which gives a lot of debuffs. Then you work your way up to Victorian, which gives quite a lot of debuffs. Then you go to the machine era, which gives a few debuffs. Then the oil era, which starts to get you positives. And then, you know, it's supposed to be obviously advancing further and further down the eras, because the mod does say that they want to go to like the 2050s or something, which is a little bit ridiculous. But I guess that's what they want to do. Obviously, right now, there's only content for the Victorian era, the pre-industrial era, and the machine era. Because these ones, well, I believe you can play in, like, the other ones, but, you know, like, the tech tree goes all the way up to 1918, I think. Something like that. Yeah, like 1918. But there's no content up here. Like, events will not fire, and countries will not have new leaders or anything like that. I believe the content for the mod right now stops at like something in the late 1860s, and even then, after you go over 1860, it starts to get, you know, not as important. Then there's the major religion. I'm not sure what this does. I have no idea what it does because I've never seen it like do anything. But, you know, I guess a bit of flavor. So there's a lot of them. Catholic, Protestant, Coptic, Sunni, Orthodox, all that jazz. Confucians, Buddhists. And then you can also be secular. So the way you switch that is by decisions. You can convert to Protestantism, which is gonna kind of annoy some people, obviously, and so that's gonna reduce some of your civility. I presume it is going to have some kind of benefit, but who knows. And you can secularize, which is even more expensive, but I'm guessing it's gonna have benefits in the end, because, you know, everyone did it. So it must be the good idea, I guess. Anyway, whatchamacallit, going down, you have governmental policies. So there's this is just like the constitutional state. So you can be a parliamentary monarchy, an absolute monarchy, a republic, right? Yeah, presidential system republic. The British Raj, anything interesting? No. Absolute monarchies all over. Okay, so tribes aren't anything new. Who else could have Lanfang Republic? That's not correct. Who could have a different system? Trying to like brainstorm this, but I'm not seeing who could have a different system right now. parliamentary republic as well. Anyway, these affect I think a few events, but nothing really too important. Nothing really too important. And there's human rights or constitution, which just changes around a few stats. And then there are elections. Now, if you have elections, you will get election events, which then tie into your focus tree. For example, if you take a look at, maybe Prussia. Yeah, Prussia has election of 1858, although maybe they're still an absolute monarchy, so maybe this is a bad example. No, they are a parliamentary monarchy, even though it says that they have no elections. For example, the UK has elections, but they don't have anything yet because they're still doing the Sepoy focus tree, the Sepoy rebellion focus tree. That's supposed to switch at some point, but it seems like it hasn't. They went with the British Raj. Anyway. What would be the best thing to do? Yeah, so that's that. Then there's cultural and educational policy, and as you can see, there's also a few placeholders that aren't, important yet, but will become more important later on. Saint-Simonianism. That's great. And yeah, so the going down, you have cultural and educational policies, open schools, privileged education, that kind of stuff. Obviously, compulsory education. If you have, if you have anything to research, that's pretty important. Religion. Okay, so that's why. That's why you should turn to secularism, because it decreases research time. Not bad. You can also become atheist. I guess, yeah, as long as your ruling party is not fundamentalism. Understandable. Demographic policies is just like, everything that has to deal with population. Suffrage, obviously quite a big concern for countries around this period. Hello? What's happening? Yeah, the game is slow. That's a point that I was going to make later on. This mod is extremely slow. I'm not even sure what happened. Like, to me, it just seems like nothing happened. Maybe someone got released by event, or maybe some big event happens to some country, and that, made a lot of things happen. Early economic mobilization is damaging the Piedmontese economy. Yeah, that's something that is quite great. It is the fact that these decisions and spirits do affect the events that you can get. For example, peacetime economies get generally positive events, whereas if you start to mobilize, then, if you're not at war, that's gonna make you... It's going to give you some bad events, and then, you need to react to those. So that kind of works. And, yeah, it is pretty good because, otherwise Hearts of Iron 4 would just be a little bit too ridiculous. Because the game usually has some interesting mechanics that would normally make it really easy to become really overpowered, but thankfully there's a few limits. Then, trade laws, what you'd expect pretty much. But yeah, like the demographic policies, you can have border control, closed borders, no borders, or open borders. Now, this, in my opinion, is not really well thought out, because apparently open borders increases your monthly population while closed borders decreases it. Now, that's obviously supposed to represent that there's migration, right? See, this is just forgetting, though, that migration has to come from somewhere. And if that somewhere has open borders, then more people are gonna come out of that country and become migrants. So countries that were, you could say, historically exporting migrants. Yeah, I guess we could just do this. Yeah, I guess we could just do this. Countries that were historically exporting migrants around this period, such as Italy, should probably have that these laws actually decrease your population. You know, the open borders. Now, of course, this would be ridiculously complex to actually mod in, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they're aiming towards in the end anyway. Who knows? Then you have demographic policies, which is just, the economy policies, which is just, you know, mobilization. The numbers are worked around just a little bit. You know, consumer goods factories are more important as a whole to represent a few of the extra quirks of the period. Conscription law, pretty much standard. Although you can increase conscription with less negatives, generally, I can see. Although you have to pay some political power, so that's, I guess, pretty not good. Then there's population growth policies, so either, you know, regular growth, encourage growth, which is, you know, gonna cost consumer goods factories and political power, but it's gonna increase the population increase. Enforced population growth, disencouraged population growth, or restricted population growth. Again, I'm not sure that these people really understand how demographics works, but, you know, I'm not going to complain about that. Then you have suffrage, which is, you know, about how much you can switch around your laws and stuff. And hopefully it also influences events and stuff. Then you have equality or discriminatory laws. You can segregate the country because, obviously. Economic policies, so obviously trade laws, taxes. Now, high taxes are really, really good. You know, they just increase everything. Although they probably have some bad events. So, you know, let's increase those taxes. Because why the hell not? Military budget. Obviously, once you have increased those taxes, you need to spend that money somewhere. And oh, look, it's the origin of the species. And obviously, a very low militarized country will not spend that much money, but they will also have less buffs to their military. Whereas a very highly militarized country is going to spend a lot. And most likely they're Prussia, as you can see. Either you're Prussia or you have plus 60% war support. So, you know, if you want to spend 10% of the budget on the military, you best be Prussia. Saint-Simonialism. Yeah, there's flying machines, which is kind of hilarious. Some of these are actually pretty decent. Man, these texts are all really good. I want all of them. Ooh. Oh, wow. That's overpowered. Anyway. More tech. More tech. Yeah, so that was budget. Then you have child labor, because of course. Work hour law, which is, you know, people back then were very, very overworked. Then land purchase laws, aka, are you a crazy feudalist pig, or are you a collectivizing communist, or are you just, you know, a standard capitalist of various flavors? So right now, obviously, we are not able to select peasant holdings or collectivization because, you know, that would require us to be a little bit more progressive than we are. And I think most countries at the beginning start with American slavery, start with some kind of land purchase or serfdom. Yeah, look at that. Tsarist Russia uses serfdom, whereas apparently the Qing Empire uses land purchase, which is, we could say, relatively historically inaccurate. Yeah, anyway. More events. This time it's the Maoris derping about. This is our land, the Mori Warriors. Yeah, there's a lot of events for revolts happening all around the world, and what's kind of nice is that often they get a lot of buffs to compensate for their small size, you know, small population, not a lot of resources and economy to produce guns. But yeah, like for example, at the beginning there's a big war that happens in the Caucasus between Circassia, the Caucasian Imamate, which is over here, and Russia. And you could say, you know, obviously Russia is a lot stronger, but you know, the Caucasus has this awesome national spirit, defenders of the Caucasus, that really gives them a buff and makes the whole war a lot more difficult for Russia. And for some reason, I can show you this because for some reason after the war ended in this game, the Circassians didn't get annexed, which is really strange. So yeah, lots of buffs to small, little, dinky-winky countries. And, you know, political advisors, normal stuff. Research and production, normal stuff. Military staff, normal stuff. Then you have ideologies. There's a lot of them. There's centrism, which is just liberalism in the most bland form. Traditional conservatism, which is kind of like, you know, Prussia. And he's dissolving the parliament, because why the hell not? Social egalitarian, which is utopian socialism. You might know this word, but yeah, it's essentially like, well, I mean, it's supposed to be that, but for some reason over here they have grouped in the historical left in Italy with them. And that's not what the historical left was, but whatever. Then there is collectivist socialism, which is, you know, a little bit more socialism. I guess like social egalitarian also kind of, very kind of, is some of the left liberalism of the period. Because otherwise you wouldn't explain why collectivist socialism exists. Then you have Vanguard Communism, which is obviously, you know, a little bit later on. Autocracy, the standard par for the course of most countries around this period. So, you know, such as the Bonapartist Empire, the Habsburgs, the Romanovs, the Qing Empire, the Tokugawa Shogunate, or I guess they're fundamentalist. For, well, I don't know. I really do not know. The Spanish are centrist, apparently. You know, all the colonial states, all the uncivilized states, they're pretty much all autocrat governments. Then there's radical democracy, which is, it's difficult to explain, but it's essentially something that people were going for around this period, often involving throwing bombs at monarchs. Then there's chauvinist populism, which is something that generally is around Latin America in some periods. And, you know, pretty much right-wing populism by modern standards, you could say. For some reason, Argentina is a radical democracy. Oh, great. Yeah, okay. Then there's anarchism, because why the hell not? And for some reason, they have placed this leader as the leader of the Italian anarchists. And that guy was not an anarchist. He was a radical Democrat. If you can read the name, look up the guy, Giuseppe Mazzini. Pretty important guy. Also a terrorist. A lot of people around this time were terrorists. And then there's fundamentalism. And obviously, for us, that is the Roman Catholic Church. The leading party. You know, they're pretty important people. Other fundamentalist countries, I guess, include Japan, for some reason, because the shogunate apparently is that. And here we go. So, going further a bit, what can change your ideology? Mostly it's just the generic focus tree doesn't really provide that for most nations. For the American focus tree, which is something that we're gonna talk about in a bit, you can change your ideologies. I believe for the generic focus tree, though, you do not really have like any way to change around your politics. Like you can centralize or decentralize, but you know, it doesn't really do anything. Maybe there's some way to get election events for Any elections by event? Any elections by event? Any elections by event? You know, so, you know, maybe you can just change it with election events, but generally, except for a few focus trees, it doesn't seem like there's really many ways to change it. So, mostly, you're going to have to wait for events. And there actually are a lot of historical events. You might not see that many when you play through, especially as some countries that aren't, you know, close to Europe or that important. Maybe they're just a little bit too minor to have events. But yeah, there's quite a few events. A lot of them, again, centered around Italy. Not Italy, sorry, Europe. And they cause a lot of things. Just, for example, you saw the Mori rebellion down here, the Taranaki revolt, which apparently has managed to obtain independence. Or something that guides Prussia and Italy towards unification. So, for example, right now we're going to have the Expedition of the 1000, which is when Italian boss, you know, just absolute maniac, Giuseppe Garibaldi, just gathered up 1,000 people in a boat, in 2 boats actually, and shipped them off to Sicily to cause a revolt against the reactionary and ancien regime Bourbon dynasty of Sicily in order to liberate Sicily and southern Italy and achieve unification. So this is what we're going to do right now. No, I do not wish to do this. I wish to do this. So yeah, this is pretty great. So obviously events, you know, they spawn units. For example, like earlier on, as Italy, you have to fight a war against Austria to reclaim Lombardy. And the way you do that is you get a bunch of French event spawn troops on your side. Because that's what historically happened. The French intervened to help the Italians against the Austrians. That was a really bad idea for France. The reasons why we could, you know, you could talk a lot at length about, but whatever. Actually, I'd really love you if you came up here. There we go. So yeah, now we're gonna fight this war, and that also generally has a lot of implications for your focus tree, because I've noticed this a lot with Sardinia Piedmont, but for a few other countries as well, such as, for example, the Austrian Empire. There are a lot of preconditions for a lot of the paths that you're going to be taking, or you're going to be forced to take. So the events and what you choose in them is actually relatively important. And in that, it kind of reminds me of like, kind of reminds me of Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich, but especially reminds me of Darkest Hour Kaiserreich, and in general Darkest Hour mods, where event-driven storylines are very important. Or also Red World is another mod that has this kind of mechanic very prominent. Oh yeah, look at my cavalry go. Oh, they have troops in Naples. No, I want to do this. I want to do this. There we go. So yeah, I think that that's the end for the political focus tree, pretty much. I'm pretty sure that that's just the end for that. Wait, are they? Oh, naval battles. Yeah. So next up, we're gonna take a look at obviously the decisions, which, you know, very, very heavily intertwined with the political focus tree. And they have to deal with a few things, such as the economy. You can just spend a lot of your political power to buff yourself up in a lot of ways, as you'd expect. And then they're very important because some of them, again, they switch around your political laws. So that is a way that you can essentially change how your country works that normally would not be done. And then there's obviously decisions to form countries, which is, you know, what everyone loves, such as the Italian nation that we are about to accomplish right now. Although the Italian nation decision, like, it's not as useful. Oh no, because you need to have completed the focus form Italy, for us at least. How interesting. Because all the Italians have this decision. If we tag over to the Pope, we can see that he has this decision. But apparently he needs to have completed the focus for Italy. So I think that's a little bit bugged because he cannot complete the focus for Italy. He doesn't have the focus for Italy because he's not Sardinia Piedmont. I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to get around that by cheating, but at least the decision is there. And if we take a look at some other countries, you know, most obviously in Germany, they're add Greece to the Zollverein? What the fuck? Okay. Also, apparently there's no Form Germany decision, so I'm an idiot. You can only do that for the focus tree. What about as Bavaria? Do you get a decision to form Germany? Apparently not. Apparently not. I wonder what other formables could there be. Like, I'm sure that this is gonna be one of the things that is very, very easily added and developed. Swedish focus tree. Oh, great. It is very, very easily added and developed, but, you know, maybe not so much yet. Can you form the Central American Union or Republic or whatever? No. Can you reform Gran Colombia? Everyone's favorite. No. So yeah, anyway, apparently I'm an idiot. What about over here? What do you have, Japan? Apparently puppets can fight for independence. How great. If we take a look at you, we can see that there's fight for independence. Oh, great. Increase our autonomy. That's pretty cool. I like that. I definitely enjoyed that. Anyway, back to Italy. So yeah, that's what decisions generally do. There's obviously unique ones during war. There's unique ones for your economy, depending on. Oh wow, that's a lot of dockyard output. Depending on what you've picked to be your economic regime. Oh no! Oh no! Run away! Really? Really? This is a country? That's hilarious. So yeah, now we annex them. Oh, come on. Really now? They're not capitulating? That is retarded. Their entire country is dead. They should be capitulating. Ah, well. Destroy this last enemy army. The last Sicilian infantry division. Yeah, then, I guess production, we're gonna take a look at that later. Now it's time to take a look at research. There's what you'd expect with rifles. Very, very good graphic design. Oh, here we are. Annexed. And now we can take Form Italy, right? There we go. Expedition of the 1,000 is completed, and the time has come to claim the title of Italy for our nation. How great. Not before we lost 7 frigates for no reason, though. Although, we just got the Sicilian fleet. Ha ha ha. The Pirates of Sicily. How great. Anyway. And yeah, because we annexed Sicily, we also got their army, which is kind of hilarious. And yeah, what were we looking at? So yeah, that's that. Generally, the areas that have icons complete and you know, all developed look really, really good. The others do not, such as this one. This does not look so good. This also doesn't look so good. The bonuses and the balancing, I do not know. I haven't played enough for it to really have clicked with me. But yeah, there's like a lot of different unit types that normally are not in Hearts of Iron 4, such as light infantry. So you start off with your basic infantry, but you also have light infantry. Then you have machine gun companies. You can get cavalry with this. You can get like horse artillery or just regular artillery. Artillery we're going to take a look at in a bit. One thing that pisses me off is uniforms, but considering that the time period is so large, I can kind of understand the uniform stuff. What I'm not the biggest fan of is that you have to produce them, but this makes sense once we look at the resource system. So bear in mind, this is not like in Black Ice where it's retarded. It does actually have a bit of a purpose to it, because resources are relatively important. So that's infantry, the army support, what you'd expect pretty much. Vehicles, first you need to research steam engines before you can do that. There's armored trains, for which I am very happy. Bicycles, for which I am very happy. Motorcycles, for which I am very happy. And I believe the only way to like progress further down here are events, but for now, obviously there's no progression there. Then there's artillery, which are rockets, although they're pretty bad because obviously, you know, these are pretty primitive rockets. Then there's artillery, which are just, you know, ridiculously old cannons. Then you start to branch off into modern guns, such as field guns and howitzers, which howitzers are a different unit type, so yeah, remember that. And then siege guns to destroy those pesky fortifications. Breakthrough in aviation, how great. Then there's army doctrines, which you can take all of them. Like, these can all be researched, and once you have researched all of them, you research the machine era army doctrine, and that I believe should switch. No, but maybe that's just not complete yet. But yeah, it's gonna essentially switch around like what you're doing. Like, you start off with Victorian army and you have a lot of doctrines for that, and then you have machine era army and there's gonna be a lot of doctrines for that. Then naval technology, you have essentially the equivalent of the destroyer, the frigate, which goes into monitors. These guys should be armored. A big ship with lots of guns. What a great description. And here we are. We are Italy. Oh, that's a big event. That is a massive event. Oh, how great. How great. Unorganized navy, unorganized army. Ooh, that's not very good. Form the Italian nation. Oh, that apparently is a game over for Sardinia Piedmont because we have tag switched. We are now Ita instead of Pia. So yeah, unorganized army, unorganized navy. Apparently our head of state is our leader, and we have switched back to autocracy. How great. So we're gonna have to fix that. Let's see the focus tree. It is really good. Although, apparently, some of these do not have events. Or sorry, do not have effects. So that's pretty bad. Form the Ministry of Propaganda. Advocate expansion. Imprison democratic activists. Perfect the Italian war machine. Form the Greater Kingdom of Italy. Yeah, seems like you can be a pretty nasty person. That's always good. Ooh, follow Mazzini. Apparently that increases conservatism. What? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, March on Rome. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is very work in progress because it doesn't make any sense, but, well, the ban monarchism thing does. Yeah, nurture liberal ideas. How great. Long live the Italian Republic. Huh. Yeah, apparently you can overthrow the king. That's pretty good. Yeah, this is this focus tree is very work in progress because what happened historically in Italy is none of these things. So yeah, that's fine, I guess. That is very fine. And wait, hold on. What? Oh, okay. What? What the fuck? Select divisions before creating an. Are you retarded? Apparently these divisions are not counted as mine. You also lose your commanders, which is only slightly annoying. Yeah, I presume that if I just load, then it's gonna fix it, but oh my god. Yeah, the game is slow. The game is very slow. So, you know, the tech tree, it's very, very good. Whatever. It's also big. And there's a lot of icons in there, so it must have taken a lot of work. But, yeah, we're gonna deal with the whole slowness situation in a bit. Then there's the resource system. There's a lot of different resources: tungsten, aluminum, plastics, oil, rubber, steel, raw iron, which gets turned into steel, fabric, cotton, which gets turned into fabric, coal, and wood. Now, they're all relatively important because they all go into the factories. For example, if you want textile mills to produce fabric, to produce uniforms, because they require fabric, then you are going to require a textile mill, which is going to reduce your cotton and increase your fabric. Then there's other buildings that provide different resources, and then there's just the free standard factories, you know, civilian factory to construct other factories, which is just called factory. Arms factories to produce, you know, to assign to the production of weapons and equipment. And then naval dockyards, so that's pretty much the same. Infrastructure, airbase, anti-air, and radar are the same as well. Portable power services. Yeah, these are not the only ones though. There's also these, because why the hell not? Titanium, silicates, ceramics, machine parts, rare earth metals, electronics, and portable power services. So these all become more or less important as the game progresses, and these can all be traded for. So yeah, that's pretty good, and I'm sure that the whole system will be improved as the game, you know, gets developed. Then there's the fortifications, which is the same. Production, again, you produce what you research, depending on what kind of resources you have. So for example, if you want to produce guns, you're gonna need wood and iron. And I'm not sure what coal does, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be relatively important. It's a key ingredient in creating steel and machine parts. Okay, that sounds pretty important later on. Not yet, because, you know, we're still relatively unindustrialized, but yeah. Then recruit and deploy. So as I've said, there's a lot of different types. So there's cannon artillery, mounted infantry, which is just infantry with less movement penalties, I think. Irregulars, which are shittier infantry. Light infantry, which are infantry that use less equipment effectively and have probably less problems at traversing different terrain types. And then there's just the random standard line infantry. Then you have cavalry. You have light cavalry and dragoons. They have very, very slight differences. Very, very slight differences. Dragoons are a bit heavier. And there's a lot of event spawn templates that you're gonna get. Now, I do highly advise that you just disable NATO counters, actually. Because the NATO counters are very, very heavily bugged. So if you play this, just disable the NATO symbols and use some kind of standard symbols, because it's gonna make your life a lot easier. Like, a lot easier. Like, for example, that cavalry icon is really, really good. Unfortunately, the rest, yeah, go back to, ooh, okay, that's, yeah, I do enjoy that symbol. I do enjoy that hat symbol. It is very, very good. So yeah, that's what you should probably do. Yeah, so pretty much we have dealt with the screens over here. So then the map, like the map is obviously very heavily detailed. If we go to observe mode. Wait, what? Okay. And then disable the fog of war. We can see that, like, the states, most of them are the same as regular Hearts of Iron 4, but some of them have been broken up to represent the, obviously, different borders of the period, such as, you know, there's different areas in Taiwan, there's different areas in Japan, probably in Korea. Yeah, definitely a lot of different areas in Korea. And, you know, just all over the world, there's a lot more states, not just in terms of the map unit states, but also in terms of, like, countries that you can play. Some of them are very interesting. A lot of them have focus trees. A lot of them don't have focus trees, and so they use a generic focus tree. That is the same for pretty much, I think, everyone in Eurasia, really. Like, yeah. Then in, I'm not sure about the Middle East. No, the Middle East also uses that. Then in Africa, there's different focus trees. I'm not sure what exactly is the criteria for one focus tree or the other. So there's this one, the An African Realm. Then there's, let's see, there's this one, the Might of the Warriors versus Wisdom of the Ancients one. Then there's the Unlocalized one, which is over here, the Values of Our Traditions, which I'm pretty sure is the same as no, this is In Our Way, Not Theirs, and then in Values of Our Tradition. So, you know, all these focus trees are pretty much all, like, thematically the same. You know, they represent these Africans coming into contact with Europeans and then dealing with that contact in one way or another. And then there's maybe another one somewhere. Maybe another one, like, what do you have? No, you just have the generic one. What about the orange? They have a unique one. Okay. Zulus. Yeah, the Zulus have the generic one. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much that. And I have no idea what criteria there is for one focus tree or the other. Like, I just do not know. I really do not know. Like, are there... There were some interesting things happening in Africa around this time, although I've never researched them. Yeah, like the Tukulur Empire and Dahomey. But so far it doesn't seem like there's anything unique for those. Although they do all have portraits, pretty much. Most of them, at least. Even if it's just like some random picture. Literally. Like, I'm pretty sure they just searched Arabic man stock picture for some of these. You know, that looks suspiciously like Arabic man stock picture. But, you know, it does help to add flavor and immersion, so that's always good. Whenever leaders have, like, known pictures of them, they... look, the AI wants to abolish the parliament. Whenever there's, like, known pictures of leaders, they obviously use those, and they stylize them in the Hearts of Iron 4 fashion, like, hello, Alexander Gorchakov. Hello, Lord Palmerston. He is pretty important. Hello? Ah, it's still James Buchanan. There is the American Civil War in the game, although that has not fired yet. Haha, the Sherman Plan. Yeah, this is all very good. There's Pedro of Brazil, you know, all these lovely leaders. So, you know, if you want your cults of personalities, you know, Napoleon III, you're going to have a pretty picture to look at as well. Yeah, pretty much that. So that's that. And then there's the issue of, like, is the game playable? And yeah, it looks like the AI does not have a way to get these units assigned either, which is very sad. Although they did get a massive navy. Like, is it actually fun to play? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's not what you're supposed to be taking. Kingdom of Italy does not own Lombardy. Oh. Whoa, that's a bit of a bug. Apparently that's... No, sorry. No, you do own Lombardy, so that's just bugged. Okay. Yeah, perhaps this should be fixed. So if any of the developers are watching, obviously, you know, not intended to harp on the mod. It's just very, very early. By the way, one thing that I should be mentioning is that I'm playing the in development build and not the quote-unquote stable build, because the stable build is a lot less developed than this. Like, if you go to the mod workshop page, which I will link in the description, you will be able to download a version of the mod that is objectively inferior to the one that is newest, because the newest one you can obtain it by going to GitHub. It gets updated very regularly, which means often there's, you know, stuff that probably doesn't work in there. So yeah, you need to be kind of careful when you play around with it, but it does improve the amount of content in the mod by a massive margin. Now, you're gonna have to deal with some of the focus trees perhaps having, as you can see, like localization and graphical, you know, very, very beta issues. But if you can deal with that, then, you know, it works. It mostly works. So yeah, that's what I highly advise you to do, is download the GitHub version and install it manually. The only problem, as I've said, is the way the game is extremely slow at running. Like, for example, right now it's almost crashed. There's sometimes a few skips and times when it's, you could say, when it's like lagging to, you could like calculate the solution to an event or something like that. So that's mostly fine though, because that's what you'd expect. It's in development. The worst though is how slow the game runs as a whole, like in terms of how much time you can clock in a playthrough. Like, it's definitely inferior to a lot of other mods because there's just a lot more countries that the game has to calculate. And hey, look, it's fundamentalism. There's just a lot more countries that the game has to calculate the AI for, and the armies for, and the events for, and all this stuff, and the decisions, and the focus trees. You know, it's obviously quite slow. The problem is, this is a type of mod where, you know, the timeline is a lot more expanded compared to regular Hearts of Iron 4. Now, obviously right now there isn't enough content to really make that timeline expanded and fully functional, because, you know, at 1860 something you're gonna run out of things to do and the game's not gonna have things happening anymore. But most definitely it takes a while to play. Like, for example, when I was earlier on playing as Piedmont and trying to unify Italy, one thing that kind of bugged me is the fact that to progress along with your focus tree, that right now I cannot show you anymore because we switched, but to progress along you need to have some historical events happen, which happen, you know, over the span of like 4 years since the game begins, you know, from 57 to 1861. So obviously that's a long time to wait, and if the game were to run as quickly as perhaps could, it wouldn't be a problem. But since the game runs relatively slowly, it is, overall kind of a grindy experience, you could say. But yeah, that's mostly about it. I don't see anything else to really talk about, so I will sign off. I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. If you want to try out the mod, I will leave both the links obviously in the description below. And if you would like more content from this, tell me, and subscribe, Kapakipo, because I will be doing a series on this mod relatively in the future. And yeah, I'll see you soon.